operations in 1989. And we right now are the market leader in the migration piece, and we also provide consulting services to pharma, life sciences in their digitization of the GXP processes and all. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we'll start with you, Mr. Lenka. I heard industries that all three of you represent, right? So the industry that you represent is manufacturing. What are the obstacles that you face and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, so if you see here, the MSME, the manufacturing plays a pivotal role in the manufacturing industry across the country, and it almost contributes like around 30% to the GDP. But the business, if you see here, it's continuously changing, and it's changing at a very, very fast pace. And these organizations work on wafer thin margins. So it is one of the, I think in earlier discussion, so somebody also touched upon this point about the cash-strapped organizations. And as Rajiv also said, the decision should come from the top. So that is actually a impediment when we go for implementing any digital technologies across the organizations or the sector. And in these organizations, if you see, the data are residing in silos, particularly the manufacturing or the shop floor data. So when we are not integrating this data with the core ERP, so we are not getting actually the correct picture of the product costing or the actual cost of a product that we are selling to the customers, what is the profit margin. So if we use something like digital technologies like IoT, machine learning or something, so we can get a wide variety of data which we can put across different functions to evaluate the costing part. But here again, if you see the customers, they are not very sure on the return on the investment if you are investing on these products. So yes, as Rajiv said, that the push should come from the top, then only it would move ahead.
Yeah, some of the challenges you've highlighted are common across industry. Do you see cost of any additional challenge different from the one Mr. Lenka has highlighted in the construction and real estate vertical?
Yeah, I would like to, of course, there are challenges, but I also see it as an opportunity in a sense that there's a huge fillip on, whether it is from the government side, if you see huge outlays, huge fund investments on the infrastructure side of things, where, HiBAR we focus on. So when you see all the challenges, typically, even if I go back maybe 5-10 years back, there was no precedence of to how an application like, let's say, SAP would be working on an infrastructure or let's say construction, because typically their projects would be in perhaps remote site. In fact, I remember having been part of an implementation where there was a mountain and just beyond the mountain was Pakistan. So it was an Uri. So where we were doing an SAP implementation. Now, of course, Uri everybody knows because it's of the movie. So that was one. Second, the type of staff that you get in such projects. So you have to design systems which not only caters to the management vision of control, transparency, analytics, decision making, but also it has to be usable by the people who are on the ground. So that is one challenge which we have. Second challenge is a mindset change, because typically this industry, I would say, is not as mature as in the digitization today, as maybe if you would say a banking or something else. Yeah. So there are two aspects to that. One is having solutions which is fit across the leadership rung or to the bottom. Second is making this mindset change of people. However, these are also, brilliant opportunities and that is where we see with this growth story which is going to happen, this segment will come up and where digitization has a big, big role to play.
Mr. Kazi, in addition to this, something which is peculiar to consumer goods.
I think I'll add to what he has said. While not very specific to consumer, but something even consumer goods industry also faces, which is adoption. There have been a lot of interactions that we have had with the C-level people in organization, with business owners. And one of the hesitation, I would say, in going in for a solution which is systematic, which is process-driven, is whether the people will be able to use it or not. This is, I think, a common theme across industries. But once you convince that, yes, it's possible for the people to adopt, I think then it's a matter of the implementation partner actually proving that the people are going to use it properly. Last decade or so, what has happened is even SAP solutions, if you see, they have come up with a very simple user interface. We call that Fiori, which is mobile enabled as well. And today you go to any remote location, you go to people who are not educated to that level that you would expect in industry. They are also very comfortable using a mobile. So if you are able to offer a user interface on the mobile, which is simple, which doesn't complicate the transactions, doesn't have too much of bells and whistles, just the data that they need to enter, I think adoption is assured in a way. So we implemented recently for a food company, and using this user interface, we were able to expose it to the people right to the worker level. We were able to enable it on tablets. And what happens then is the person who's actually in the plant, who also has to operate the equipment, at the same time he also has to enter data. He doesn't have to run back and maybe where the computer is placed and do the data entry. It's all available on the tablet. So a lot of changes have happened now, and now I think adoption is also probably not that much of a challenge going forward.
I would have loved to continue this conversation, but I have two small questions for you, short ones. One, next-gen technology that you would bet on. Sabahat.
I think automation is something very big, but it's not one word or a sentence. You have AI, ML in the back end.
One word, Sabahat.
Yeah, I think automation.
Automation. Mr. Lenka.
I would go for 3D printing.
3D
So it has got a huge potentials going forward.
Interesting. Kaustuf.
I mean, there are many, but if you say one, maybe artificial intelligence. Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much, everyone, for this insightful session. It was a pleasure to moderate this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vibha. Thank you so much, everyone. Well, I'm waiting on stage for Dinesh to join me. Though I know it's going to be his session next. And there I can see him. So, compassionate capitalism एक ऐसा economic system है जिसमें people, planet, profit और purpose को साथ लेकर काम किया जा सकता है. यानी एक ऐसा economic ecosystem, ऐसा economic system जिसमें कामयाबी के साथ साथ environment और humanity की overall growth का भी पूरा ख्याल रखा गया है. और आगे अपने सेशन पर बढ़ने से पहले आपको ये बता दूं कि देश के बिजनेस लीडर्स कंपैशनेट कैपिटलिज्म के कॉन्सेप्ट को कैसे अपना रहे हैं, यही हम इस सेशन में जानने की कोशिश करेंगे. और इस सेशन को मॉडरेट करेंगे दिनेश गौतम, whom I have on stage with me, just waiting for the setup to finalize. He's the senior executive editor of TV9 भारतवर्ष. और इस बातचीत से के सिलसिले को दिनेश आगे बढ़ाएंगे और खास सेशन में हमें ज्वाइन करेंगे करिश्मा मेहता, फाउंडर ह्यूमन ऑफ बॉम्बे. Do we have him here with us?
हेलो. मुझे लगता है कि वो अपनी चाय का प्याला खत्म करके जल्द अंदर आने वाली है. और इसके अलावा कौन कौन है आप?
ओके, मैं नेक्स्ट भी बता देती हूँ आपको. इस सेशन में ज्वाइन करने वाले हैं मिस्टर सिंघानिया, दैट इज अनंत अजय पद सिंघानिया, CEO of JK Enterprises. Pleasure having you with us, sir.
Please, sir. Most welcome.
The President of the Indian Merchant Chamber. Kevalbia, co-founder, Zepto.
कैवल्य अगर यहाँ पर हैं तो मैं उन्हें मंच पर आमंत्रित करता हूँ। जेप्टो के को-फाउंडर और करिश्मा अगर हॉल में आ गई हैं तो वो भी प्लीज मंच पर तशरीफ लाएं। और असल में हम अपने इन मेहमानों से ये समझना चाहते हैं कि दो चीजें जिनको ये समझा जाता है कि वो पोल्स अपार्ट होती हैं, साथ साथ नहीं चलती। मसलन किसी नीम का शहद हो जाना या किसी एकदम ही बर्फ की तरह ठंडी चीज का आग पकड़ लेना, ये मुमकिन होता है क्या? नहीं होता, अमूमन नहीं होता। उसी तरीके से वो जिसको कंसीव ही किया गया हो, जिसका कॉन्सेप्ट ही हो ये कि वहां आप प्रॉफिट मेकिंग के लिए जा रहे हैं, क्या उस प्रॉफिट मेकिंग के साथ आसपास के लोगों की बेहतरी के लिए, इस प्लेनेट की बेहतरी के लिए, यहाँ के लिविंग बींग्स की बेहतरी के लिए भी चीजें की जा सकती हैं? क्या ये बिजनेस और साथ में लोगों की बेहतरी ये संभव है? अगर संभव है तो जाहिर है वो लोग आपको ये बताएंगे जिन्होंने इसको संभव बनाया है, मुमकिन बनाया है। ये जो बॉटम लाइन होती है बिजनेस में, प्रॉफिट मेकिंग, उसमें प्लैनेट एंड पीपल का समावेश कैसे हो सकता है, यही हम समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। और मेरे बाकी मेहमान जब तक मुझे ज्वाइन करें, क्योंकि अनंत सर यहां ऑलरेडी हैं, मैं इस बातचीत को उनके साथ शुरू करता हूं। सर, बहुत स्वागत है आपका। और असल में सबसे एप्ट मेरे मेहमान के साथ मैं इस बातचीत की शुरुआत कर रहा हूं। कंपैशनेट कैपिटलिज्म, ये सुनने में सर अच्छा लगता है, थोड़ा राइमिंग लगता है, सी जैसा, लेकिन ये बड़ा मुश्किल काम रहा है। क्योंकि जब भी इसकी कोशिश की गई, मसलन चाइना में जब कम्युनिज्म के साथ कैपिटलिज्म की बात हुई, तो माओ को अपने लोगों को यह समझाने के लिए सामने आना पड़ा था कि हम अपना काम ऐसे करेंगे कि हमारी जो गवर्नमेंट होगी वो कम्युनिज्म के साथ आगे चलेगी, लेकिन हमारी जो इंडस्ट्री होगी वो कैपिटलिज्म को आगे पुश करेगी। ये कंपैशनेट कैपिटलिज्म, इसको जरा समझाइए हमको, और ये कितना मुमकिन है ये बताइए।
Namaskar, I'm very happy to be here and heartiest congratulations to all the awardees. When you talk about compassionate capitalism, I mean, we are in an age where we are looking of inclusive growth. So when we talk about capitalism, we are talking about growth in terms of capital inputs, of expansion, and for India to grow. You know, India is today at $3 trillion. And we are poised, we are doubling we are already the 5th largest economy. Already we've been number 3 in terms of purchasing power parity. And we are looking at a lot of investments coming into business for the growth. So when we talk about compassionate, we are looking at basically inclusive growth. We have 1.4 crores. And I think our median age, world's median age is 30 years. That means 50% of the population below. So they need, capital for growth. So corporates are looking at spending in areas where it is inclusive in nature. That's how I look at it immediately.
और हमारे साथ अब कैवल्य भी जुड़ गए हैं। कैवल्य, जैसा मैंने आपको बताया, जेप्टो के को-फाउंडर हैं। और असल में कॉन्सेप्ट यह है कि क्विक डिलीवरी लोगों के लिए इंश्योर की जाए, लेकिन आप तो खुद ही थोड़ा विलंब से आ रहे हैं कैवल्य, हम आपका इंतजार कर रहे थे। ये डिलीवरी लेट क्यों हुई?
Sorry sir, our office is in Powai, so
जोक्स अपार्ट, हम यहाँ जो चर्चा कर रहे हैं वो ये चर्चा कर रहे हैं कि बिजनेस में बॉटम लाइन प्रॉफिट के साथ प्लैनेट और पीपल को भी कैसे बनाया जाए। ये एक टाइट रोप वॉक है या ये आसान काम है?
I don't think that it's easy, but I also think that finding that balance is something that every company is going to have to do at some point, right? For us, it's been a major thing. So we started the business in July last year. So it's been a little bit more than a year, and within that, what it means for us is basically just making sure that there are multiple stakeholders involved, right? For us to do delivery, you have micro warehouses, packers, last mile delivery partners, etc. Tens of thousands of them every day out doing deliveries. And so, making sure that, they're well taken care of, they're safe, they're being provided for. And at the same time, on the environmental side, how many, can we move our deliveries to bicycles and e-bikes rather than motorcycles? So whole bunch of stuff that, is already happening. And so, yeah, I think the question you asked, is it's an inevitable thing, right? For every business to think about. So, yeah.
आनंद सर, ये एक ऐसी चीज है जो ग्रेजुअली एक इवॉल्विंग सोसाइटी में जिसमें बिजनेसेस भी शामिल होते हैं, उसमें ये ग्रेजुअल तरीके से इसको रियलाइज किया जाता है और इम्प्लीमेंट किया जाता है, या इंडियन सोसाइटी ऑलरेडी उस जगह पे पहुंच गई है और इसको अकोमोडेट कर रही है इन टर्म्स ऑफ पीपल एंड प्लैनेट, जो होना चाहिए?
देखिए, CSR mandates 2% towards corporate social responsibility. But there's a 98% that we are forgetting. Businesses have 98% also to deal with. And I think a lot of companies are going ahead and looking at it in totality, how they can make an impact to the community, to their stakeholders, to the environment they're living in. Like my colleague mentioned, he's looking at, on all factors, how you can become eco-sustainable. You look at the 17 SDG goals. Every company is looking at those goals and seeing how they can engage and make a difference. If you look at even net zero, India is committed to become net zero by 2070. So can we as corporates look at where we are using emissions, how we can reduce emissions and reduce that? So that's my take.
लेकिन इस तरीके में, इसमें मैं ये भी समझना चाहता हूँ कि जैसे एक बड़ा डिफरेंस हम देखते हैं डेवलप्ड और डेवलपिंग सोसाइटीज में, वहाँ के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हम देखते हैं, अलग अलग तरीके की प्रायोरिटीज हम देखते हैं, जिनके लिए अब ये एक बड़े इश्यूज हैं कई लोगों के लिए, जो खास तौर से डेवलपिंग सोसाइटीज हैं, वहाँ ये समझा जाता है कि हमको उस लेवल पे पहुँचने तो दीजिए, फिर हम भी वो करेंगे जो आप लोगों ने किया है. क्या ये यहाँ थॉट प्रोसेस का हिस्सा होता है, या हम शुरुआत से ही, इंडियन सोसाइटी की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ और इंडियन बिजनेस ओरिएंटेशन की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, या शुरू से ही रियलाइज करके काम होना अब शुरू हो गया?
I didn't follow your question. Could you just थोड़ा?
मसलन जैसे कार्बन एमिशन के बारे में ही आप बात कर लीजिए. जो डेवलप्ड सोसाइटीज हैं वो कहती हैं, अब वो वहां पहुंच चुकी हैं उस स्टेज में, उनके लिए बड़ा आसान होता है प्रवचन देना और ये कहना कि ये किया जाना चाहिए और ये नहीं. इसीलिए एसडीजीज की जिनकी आप बात कर रहे हैं, उनके रियलाइजेशन में भी टाइम लग रहा है, क्योंकि हर कोई एक प्लेटफॉर्म में नहीं है. इफ दिस वर्ल्ड इज वन, ये प्लेटफॉर्म उस रियलाइजेशन में भी एक जैसा हो रहा है या अलग अलग?
देखिए, if you look at the recently going on COP27, they're talking about carbon emissions. They're talking about reduction. If you look at 50 years, from 1950, the data is out. India and China, being in high number of population, they're trying to ask these countries, our countries, to reduce carbon emission. Whereas if you take USA, look at their emissions are very high. So we have to be on a level playing field in terms of people who are already there and people who are getting onto the bandwagon in terms of rate. I think India is already, because we are already adapting the latest technologies, our move towards renewable green energy is very high. I mean, today we already have a hydrogen car on the road. We're already moving, all our public transport is already green to a large extent. We are moving at very high pace on EV. We already have 100,000 vehicles being registered, in EV. So I think we are already moving towards there. Now, whether we will be, I'm sure India will make sure we don't get enforced on guidelines which are not practical. So I don't see any fear there.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. India, I think, if you look at computing, skipped the stage where everyone had a desktop computer at home and went straight to the mobile phone, right? And so, in a lot of respects, I sort of see this in a similar way, where I don't think it's necessary for the entire transition to happen in that same sequence that happened in the West. I do think that, so that this would happen with computing, right? In the West, in Europe, in the US, you had everybody that had, a landline phone, then they had a laptop or a personal computer, and then they had a mobile phone. Right? In India, everybody just skipped to the mobile phone stage because of 4G and all of that stuff. And so I don't necessarily think that the same sequence that happened in the West has to play out in the same sequence here. Right? I think a lot of these things can get sort of bypassed and leapfrogged, and that's what we're seeing today, right? Like all of the stuff that we just talked about.
Yeah. Another case in point, look at our vaccination that we've done. We've vaccinated, what, 2 crore doses we've given, and look at the ease at which we get the certificate. You do the vaccine, and 10 minutes later you have the certificate, or 30 minutes later you have it. You go to the West, you look at UK, you look at US, they're still on paper certificates. It comes in the mail after 2 weeks. They have to carry it around. We're already leapfrogged in many ways, because being young and being tech-oriented, I mean, we are supplying tech to the whole world, right? So we have that first mover advantage in a lot of areas.
And Cavalier now since is sipping water. So now the question is, Cavalier, this generation, specifically the one to which you belong, generally it is perceived that, you know, we are the society which now believes in 2-minute noodles thing. Zepto is also the same concept. Where does this planet and people fall in priority when you start from profit? Where is it in that ladder?
Yeah, sure. Good question. I think, I'll answer your question in a slightly different way, right? You talked a little bit about 2% of CSR and how that's historically been how companies have thought about it. I don't think if CSR or giving back is seen as an obligation, like first I'll make my profit and then usme say I'll take some piece and do that as a CSR. I don't think that's that's something that works sustainably, right? Because then it's always seen as an obligation. The way we view it is a little bit differently, right? Like I said, within our ecosystem, delivery partners, I'll just take that as an example, they're a major stakeholder, right? We can't do deliveries without them, right? And if, so that's one part. Second part is that, delivery partners are the one interface that we have with all of our customers. They're the actual people that are going out on the ground, and they're the ones that are, at your doorstep, right? They're like a representation, like almost like a sales agent for us, right? And so if, so a lot of people within this fast delivery thing think that this whole model is based only on, riders driving super quickly, right? And, on the wrong side of the road and all that. It's not, right? This model works because of short distances. And even if that is the case, right? Worst case, like, okay, we are asking our riders to drive really fast. That's a horrible, if you're on the road and you see, Zepto delivery partners driving on the wrong side of the road, that's not good for our brand, right? And so it's in everybody's best interest in that example to make sure that our drivers are driving safe, right? And so in my mind, I think that, solving for people and planet along with profit only works if you actually think about them all going hand in hand, right? I'll give you another example. Today, something like 30% plus of our deliveries don't happen on motorcycles. They happen on bicycles, e-bikes, and e-cycles, right? Partly because, yes, it's better for the planet, but also because they're much cheaper, right? It works for both, right? It works for the planet, it works for us, right? And our bottom line. And so I think solutions that sort of solve for, multiple things together are the sort of solutions that are actually sustainable, rather than just thinking about, okay, I'm going to make my profit and then take out a piece of that and then, give that to CSR. So that's the way that we sort of view it.
Brilliant. केवल कैवल्य ही इस तरीके का उत्तर दे सकते थे. आनंद सर, एक बात और कि हम जब ये कह रहे हैं, मॉर्गन स्टैनले कहता है कि 2027 तक हम अब करीब $8 ट्रिलियन के आसपास पहुंचने वाले हैं, और जब हम प्लान कर रहे हैं कि 100 साल बाद हम कहाँ होंगे, आज़ादी के 100 साल जब पूरे हो रहे होंगे, तो हम एक पूर्ण विकसित इकोनॉमी की तरह दुनिया के सामने होंगे. साथ में हम कौन सी चीजें ऐसी कर रहे हैं जो दुनिया के लिए मिसाल बनने की तरफ जा सकती है, और भारत जैसा सोचता है वो विश्वगुरु बनेगा या जग सिरमौर बनेगा, उस तरफ एक मजबूत कदम आप देखते हैं?
देखिए, we are at 3 trillion. It's taking us 6 to 8 years to double. I don't know whether we'll be at 8 trillion by 27. It may be, if you look at the numbers, we are looking at the growth which we don't have currently. Let's understand that. Having said that, in the next 25 years, we will definitely become a superpower to reckon with. We're already very, very large in the entire world system. I mean, today, Prime Minister Modi's eminence as a world leader is very well known, and we are there. What India is doing right, I think that whatever we're doing on digitization is fabulous. In terms of mobile penetration, services that we offer on a flick of a button are world leaders. Today, the cost of data in India is the cheapest in the world. we're already the world leaders there. We consume more data than America. You know, that's the power of our population. So we already have so many services. We have a very good ecosystem now for startups. So if you look at healthcare, I mean, the kind of healthcare ecosystem that is getting done, that on the flick of a button you get healthcare. I mean, the kind of services we are getting. We are service oriented now. We have so much of tech manpower that we are able to do it. So in terms of impact, I think, you know, the impact of the entire IoT, you know, the Internet of Things, is an area where I think India will continue to excel. Delivery of service at the flick of a button. I mean, today, right of services have come. It's an early days, but it's happening. Today, a passport which used to take, God knows, 30 days, maybe 90 days, you get it in 2 days, 3 days. You know, we are getting it so fast. Things are becoming so easy. I mentioned about vaccine. We are getting it so quickly. We are just taking it as, you know, as a walk, but we don't realize the impact of it. Today, the very fact that we have Aadhaar, you know, there may be issues around it, but we have an impact. We have a identification system for every Indian. The impact of that is something which I think India is exporting that idea as well. So there are several such things which India will continue to be known as world leaders.
बेहद धन्यवाद आप दोनों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया और आइए अब चाय के लिए चलते हैं We are breaking for tea but we'll assemble soon. Next set of awards are waiting. Thank you.
Thank you.